All right, it is 7:01, so we'll just go ahead and get started here. Thanks everyone for attending. Great turnout. Glad to see everyone here. Some old faces, some new faces too, so very exciting. No, you're fine. Yeah. So we will start off and we'll go around and say everyone our names and then who you are, where you're from. Just since we have so many new faces. So I can start. My name is Bridget Mancini. I am the Ravalli County Fire Adapted Communities Coordinator for the DNRC. I'm based out of Hamilton. So, you want to jump over here?
Hello, I'm Anna Bates and I work for the Bitter National Forest and I do fire prevention. I'm based out of Hamilton.
Okay, I'm Charlotte Ballman and I'm a realtor with the Ballman Group EXP Realty.
And I'm Doug Bowman. Charlotte has the same group. Realtor here for the County.
Welcome.
I'm Brandon Broughton with Painless Insurance in Stevensville.
I'm one of our conventional painless in Stevensville.
I'm Judy Anderson. I'm a resident in the Caney Creek area. The only one on the committee so far for education. Somebody will want to join.
Hi, my name's Katie Bales. I live in Stevensville and I'm here with Dr. Charlotte and invited me tonight to learn about this.
Thank you.
Mayor Jocks, Hamilton Unit Forester for DNRC.
Christy Bennett. I'm the Sula Fire Chief.
Jarrett Bennett from Sula.
Bruce Gall, Victor Fire.
Raylene Gall, Victor Fire.
Matt Young, worked for the Bitter National Forest and the Deputy Fire Staff.
Ken Brewer, Lawrence Fire.
Eric Hoover, Ravalli County Emergency Manager.
Terry Nelson, Ravalli County Planning Administrator.
And then we have folks on Zoom. We've got George. Do you want to unmute?
Yeah.
Introduce
Yeah,
yourself.
sure. Okay, can you, yes, I think I'm unmuted. George Korn, interested citizen.
Sorry,
Should
George.
I enter?
Go again. We had our speaker off.
Dar Palin, homeowner in Kootenai Creek Village.
Thank you. And we've got Janet.
Yeah, it's her computer.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's Dar Palin. I'm a homeowner in Kootenai Creek Village.
Thanks, Dar. Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Geary with SWCA.
Thank you. I have a phone number. Someone call in on a phone.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Brian Adams, Hamilton Fire.
Thanks, Brian. Let's see. Victoria.
Hi, I'm Vicky Amato. I'm also with SWCA.
Thank you. Steve.
Steve Kimball. I'm with Montana DNRC out of Missoula, and I have the local government program for DNRC.
Thank you, Steve. Zay. Okay,
I'm here, Zay Hudson with Ravalli County Sheriff's Office.
Thanks, Zay.
we've got two more, I think. Michael.
Yeah, Michael Jester with EXP Realty. I work alongside Doug and Charlotte down there.
Thanks for joining us, Michael, and then Kristen.
Hi guys, I'm visiting you virtually. I am with the DNRC Southwestern Land Office. I am the Community Preparedness and Fire Prevention Specialist.
All right, and one more just joined us, Richard. We're just giving a quick introduction. Oh, he does not have audio. Okay, well, if he gets audio, we'll ask him to introduce.
Awesome. Yeah, we can just agenda really quick. So we'll have a quick update from Judy. Gonna try and move along with things as fast as possible. There's a lot we got going on tonight, so gonna try and pack it all in. Go over just a very short history of the CWPP before we have a presentation from SWCA Environmental Consultants about their process for updating community wildfire protection plans. We'll again kind of try and see if anyone's wanting to be a part of the update task force. And then hopefully maybe we can plan a meeting from there. And we'll also start talking about upcoming funding opportunities. There's a really great one coming up here with a concept paper due on the 30th. So lots of things to figure out and start working towards. So let's switch that. Judy, would you like to give us an update?
Sure. Anna helped put together a booth at the Valley County Fair with all kinds of information there. And Big Smokey was there. He got a lot of attention, so that brought some people so they could get a picture of him and maybe talk to us. And we were able to get 10 home assessments out of the yeah, which I thought was pretty good. And they're all, as far as I know, they're all in areas that are at high risk, thankfully. We put out some of the signs, the yellow signs that invite people to call and get a free home assessment. We have only 6 signs, so I put them out on Roaring Lion Road, Nighthawk, Wyatt Lane, Canyon Creek, Logic, Deer Creek, and Crystal Lane. We get more signs, maybe we could do more in the spring. I told people there was one particular property where it's their property that I put the sign on. I said, when the snow falls, I'll pick the signs up. And then we'll put them back out again in the spring when snow plow doesn't hit it. I was able to get permission to have a stack of the Fire in the Root brochures at the Tour of Homes resource areas in each of the homes. That is coming up this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we may get some more calls from that. We plan to have a booth at Applebee's with some information out, and we'll get to talk to more people, get more interest in home assessments. And then I was able to talk to somebody who's on the board of the Bitterroot Builders Association. And they have a monthly meeting with all the builders. Usually most of them come, and they invite speakers in for a little education breakfast. So I don't know what month we might be able to get into that, but I'm really excited about getting to talk to the builders. And Byron said he'd be willing to participate in that. So that's it.
Perfect. And then Brandon did just invite us to the Farm Bureau meeting. So we'll have a presence there, table with resources, just trying to get our word out further and hopefully get more people to come help us all. So just pretty brief overview of the history of the CWPP. Byron's our expert. Eric, you might be another expert back there, but around 2002, 2003, there was the Wildland Urban Interface Task Force. that got together and started to plan for the community wildfire protection plan. Eric, do you know when the first one was officially completed by chance?
It was probably like mid-2000s.
Okay.
Ish.
Okay, awesome. So the current one right now is the 2006 version. That was the one that was accepted and signed by everyone that needed to do so. There was a 2009 update, which was not accepted and was not signed by all parties because of the wildland urban interface maps that were created. So we are still operating off of the 2006 version. Obviously, it's a little outdated now. Lots of things have changed. Lots of new people coming in. So just trying to hopefully work towards updating that. And this is kind of the perfect route to get started on that. There is funding that is going to become available here within hopefully the next year from the DNRC to support the update of the community wildfire protection plans. There are no requirements or anything that have been finalized quite yet, so we don't know exactly what things are going to look like money wise or requirements, but it's in the works. And the more that we are prepared and ready to take it on, more that we show that the community is ready to do this, the better our odds of receiving that funding in the future. So just trying to start working towards that. So I will pass it over to SWCA. And do we need to share, do you have a presentation you need to share your screen?
Yes, that would be great. Vicky is going to share her screen.
Okay.
Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
All right.
Oh, great. All right. Hi, good evening. My name is Emily Geary, and I'm here with my colleague Vicky Amato this evening to give you a short presentation about developing CWPPs and then answer any questions you may have. Thank you so much for this opportunity to meet with you tonight. We've been learning about your new fire council and are excited to learn more about your needs and to tell you how we like to work with communities to develop CWPPs, which build on the existing CWPPs. So thank you for the brief overview of the history of the CWPPs. After the presentation, we'll provide a written summary highlighting the key takeaways. So no need to take notes. You can sit back and relax. And we'll also tell you more about our backgrounds and experience at the end of the presentation. But let's first focus on your needs. The CWPP is a chance not only to develop a plan, but also to tell your community's story. The CWPPs focus on reducing the risk of wildfire by using modeling to show how fire behaves in the landscape, and then identifying resources within the community to respond to and prevent wildfires, and then create strategies to address these issues. As we tell this story, we also need to know about the people who live in the community and what they value. We use the planning process to prioritize protection of these values. The planning process is community-driven. It's your plan and highlights your needs and recommendations. We serve the community by bringing technical expertise, facilitating the planning process, compiling the plan, but the strategies to move forward and the priorities, they come from you. We follow the 8-step planning process provided by the Society of American Foresters, and we develop the plan around the cohesive strategy. We'll establish a core team, and they will serve as the decision makers and leaders of this project. We'll look to the Fire Council to identify and convene the members of this team. Typically, a core team is made up of local, state, federal, and tribal land management agencies, fire departments, emergency responders, county commissioners, non-governmental organizations like the Fire Council, and citizens. Gaining community support for the project is critical for success. 2 strategies we like to employ are engage early and often and work with people's strengths. We publicize this project and let people know why it matters and how they may get involved. We use a variety of communication mediums to keep people informed and to gather input. And then we take the approach to work with everyone's strengths. We work to learn about your unique wildfire concerns, experience, and knowledge. For example, we work directly with fire chiefs to learn about their existing capabilities and resources for responding to fire. And then we work with land managers and fire responders to learn about land management goals and responsibilities and strategies for managing fire. We work with fire councils to learn about creating fire adapted communities and strategize about what works in the community. And finally, we work with the public to find out what their concerns are and develop education and outreach to meet their needs. We take all of the pieces of the puzzle and bring them together to develop a collaborative planning process that can be used to start or continue important on-the-ground projects. Vicki, would you like to present the next several slides?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm going to talk about the risk assessment component of a CWPP. As I am sure you all know, or many of you who worked on previous plans, CWPPs include a vast amount of analysis and modeling in order to prioritize and guide their actions. So the state is looking to utilize a quantitative wildfire risk assessment that was developed across Montana, and it's currently being scaled to each Montana county. So you'll see a component of that risk assessment here on the screen. This looks at the expected change or potential loss of values at risk as a result of fire. We've learned from the DNRC that each county will be receiving a risk report that breaks down the results of that statewide risk assessment process and provides all the data layers, including ones like this, for inclusion into your CWPP. At the direction of the county and DNRC, we would use this risk assessment to identify areas that are vulnerable to the most significant loss from future fire, as well as areas that might experience the most severe and intense fire behavior. We at SWCA also have the capability to run modeling ourselves, so we can look more closely at areas that could be under the greatest threat. And we can also model different treatment scenarios to see how those different treatments might mitigate fire behavior. Recommendations. These are arguably the most important piece of a CWPP. They're really the meat of the plan. So building on the information in the risk assessment, we work with our core teams to compile project recommendations. We would be building in recommendations that have been identified through, for example, your years of wildfire planning, your previous iterations of CWPPs, and then also projects that align with other hazard and emergency planning documents like a county hazard mitigation plan. So at SWCA for several years now, we've been aligning our CWPP recommendations with the goals of the National Cohesive Strategy, as you see here on the screen. So we break our recommendations into project ideas to create resilient landscapes. So we're looking at hazardous fuels treatments to mitigate extreme fire behavior and spread. We look at building fire adapted communities, which you're all, I'm sure, aware of. So these are projects to educate residents on fire-wise actions and other actions to reduce structural ignitability. And then we look to develop safe and effective wildfire response. So we work really closely with fire departments and volunteer firefighters to identify projects like training needs or equipment purchases to really enhance fire response capabilities. In addition, we recognize the importance of communities being prepared for potential post-fire effects. So we've added a fourth component of planning to our CWPPs, where we have a section that looks at post-fire recovery. So in this section, we're compiling best management practices for emergency stabilization and then more long-term recovery and restoration projects. So plans need to be actionable. It's very important to us that the plans that we deliver for our clients are actionable. We want this plan to obviously do more than just sit on a shelf. We want it to be a live document that's easily updated, and that continues to work for you as you pursue future mitigation actions. So we work with the core team to prioritize projects. We identify project leaders and champions to help to keep and maintain momentum. And we identify resources to actually make projects happen. As you're probably aware, projects that are included in a CWPP are eligible for different types of funding. It's often a prerequisite for grant funding. So we do our homework. We make sure that you know which funding opportunities exist and which would apply to your project recommendations as they're developed. We really pride ourselves on our plans being live documents. We really want them to focus on implementation. Our previous clients have used their plans to secure thousands of dollars in funding to implement actions on the ground, and that's really important to us and to you, of course. And then time frame. In general, the planning process takes about 9 months to a year. Obviously, this is contingent on the scope of a project and the schedule constraints that you might be working within. They can be done quicker, but we obviously don't want to cut corners. It's important to really build in time to engage the community and stakeholders. So during the planning process, we'll schedule typically about 3 core team meetings. These could be held virtually or in person. We work very closely with the core team during these meetings to review the risk assessment. We want to make sure we understand the community values at risk. We work to collaboratively develop the recommendations for the project. And then we spend time together reviewing the draft plan and making sure that it's at a point that is going to be accepted by all partners. We make revisions to the draft based on your feedback, and then we make it available for public review. And this provides the opportunity for the public to really engage in the process and provide their comments. We'll be engaging the required signatories of the plan throughout the planning process. So again, emphasizing that early and often engagement. And the signatories for a plan are county commissioners, fire chiefs, and the DNRC. So we want to make sure to ensure buy-in in the process and make sure they have ownership in their plan. Once everything's approved, then we deliver the final document. And with that, I'm going to transition back to Emily for some discussion of options.
Thank you, Vicki. So CWPPs can be scaled to the resources available, and we offer basic to advanced levels of support based on the community's needs. 3 levels of support are presented here, and these are flexible. Consider this framework. But the first level is planning support. And this is where SWCA offers guidance and consultation on any topic related to the development of a CWPP. We provide a plan template and agendas for meetings, provide technical editing and formatting, and review and comments on the draft document. This is really appropriate for groups that have the capacity to lead the planning process and develop the plan. The next level of support is our standard plan, and this is where SWCA facilitates the planning process and produces the CWPP. This is the approach we use the most often, and the group can rely on SWCA to develop the plan. We facilitate 3 core team meetings, 1 virtual public meeting, develop county level recommendations, and provide some additional fire behavior modeling. And we can provide survey forms for others to conduct hazard surveys. At the end of the project, we develop the draft and the final plan. And the third level is our advanced plan. And in this scenario, we facilitate the planning process using enhanced public engagement strategies and produce a comprehensive CWPP and a story map. This is for the group that desires all of the bells and whistles. And SWCA is very engaged in the planning process. We really practice the principle of engage early and often. We facilitate all of the core team meetings and host an in-person public meeting. We post on social media, develop more products for engagement, including the story map. And we can work with groups that have special interests in the project. For the risk assessment, We can conduct on-the-ground surveys to identify hazards and provide a summary of the surveys in the plan. And we work to develop community-specific recommendations and develop spatial delineations of fuel treatments. We develop the draft and final plan and a story map. This table is a little preview of some of the table that is in the written summary. So you'll have more details that more clearly go into the details of what's offered in the different levels of planning support and cost estimates. SWCA has been developing community wildfire protection plans since the early 2000s. And we have produced more than 40 CWPPs and more than 20 fire management plans. We have worked with small rural communities throughout the West. Vicki and I have been working together for about 7 years and really complement each other's skills. Vicki is our technical fire specialist and provides the technical advice for fire behavior and fuels recommendations. She does an excellent job of communicating the science that underpins the risk assessment. She has worked on almost every CWPP that SWCA has developed over her 15 years of work history as a fire planner for our company. Vicki holds 2 graduate degrees focusing on fire science and forestry. And I am a natural resources planner. I have experience facilitating meetings, leading groups through decision-making processes, and writing plans. One of my strengths is helping groups focus, take action, and meet their goals. And I have worked on 12 CWPPs. I have 2 master's degrees in community and regional planning and water resources. And I've worked with SWCA for 7 years, and I'm based in Helena. We also have a team of planners, fire ecologists, fire behavior modeling, and GIS specialists who support our services. The Rockies region is the hub of all of our fire services, and it's the region where our staff have developed expertise and knowledge with fuel types that you experience here. We are very excited about this opportunity to develop CWPPs in Montana. We've been tracking opportunities to do this type of work for about 4 years, and we understand that it's been no small undertaking for the state to pursue this funding and for counties to have this opportunity to do the planning work. Also, we like to work with communities to help them expand their resources and develop the plans that are most meaningful to their communities. And we're happy to talk more about other funding opportunities to help support the efforts. Thank you so much for your time and allowing us to talk with you about this important project. We'd be happy to answer any questions or respond to any comments at this time.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah.
Anyone have questions so far? Yes.
I may have missed it, and I apologize if I did. What does SWCA stand for?
Do you want to answer, Vicki?
I could take that one. It's actually the initials of our founder, Stephen W. Carruthers and Associates. People make all kinds of guesses about what it might mean, but it's that simple.
Yeah. Last week, I got one of the funniest guesses I've ever heard. It was some wild and crazy fill in the blank environmental consultants.
Hi, thank you for taking us through that. Looks like really valuable services that you guys are offering. Sorry I couldn't be there at the meeting tonight. I understand there was barbecue, and so kind of bummed about that. But you were talking about you do modeling for what sort of modeling do you do? Do you do like landscape fire analysis where you're looking at combustion across the landscape, or just talk a little bit about the kind of modeling you do?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we do a lot of fire behavior modeling and different fuel types. So we typically utilize, and this is going to be very technical, but we utilize a platform called the Interagency Fuel Treatment Decision Support System, or IFTDIS. Yep. So yeah, some of you I'm sure have heard of that. So we're looking at, flame lengths, potential fire line intensities and rates of spread and burn probability, all these different parameters that identify where the greatest risk would be. We combine the fire behavior modeling with GIS, looking at values at risk, fire response times, ingress, egress concerns, a whole series of parameters kind of go into the model. For Montana, you all have a new quantitative wildfire risk assessment for the state. So DNRC is really focusing on utilizing that risk assessment. I think so, you have a standardized process across all counties. So as far as we understand, the idea is that risk assessment is being scaled down to the county level, and then each county will receive that data. So, if we were working with you, we would be helping to basically interpret that risk assessment, identify, what does this mean for us? Like, where do we need to put in fuel treatments? Where do we have concerns about access? Where do we need to enhance fire response capabilities? So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I'm interested in probably more of the technical details of it. We can talk later some other time, I think.
Anytime.
Yeah, so for the folks here in the room, Kristen put in a comment here. One likely stipulation that might come with the DNRC funding will be the requirement to use a contractor such as SWCA in the CWPP update process. So it has not been decided whether the DNRC will choose one contractor to do all the county updates or whether each county will be able to choose their own contractor. Vicki and Emily have a broad base of experience with CWPs, and we asked them to speak to the council so we can all have a picture of what this process might look like. So we're looking at what the trade specialist license to.
And so those funds coming through the DNRC would help support utilizing a consultant or something like that. So.
Any other questions online? Or in the room?
Christine, I have a question for Christine. Where is Ravalli County sitting in the funding process? How far down are we in the priority list for the state? Does she know?
You're pretty high up there, but
We are high.
yes, and a lot of that is based on our need. We definitely are the most at-risk county in the state, but one thing that it has been made clear is that the counties need to be ready to take on this process, and they want to see local buy-in. It sounds like it will be kind of an RFP sort of situation where the DNRC has the funding and the counties will need to apply to the DNRC for that funding. And if we show that we have an adequate core team in place and we have that local support and buy-in and we are ready to go, and we have a lot of priority due to our risk, then that accelerates our approval, but also the awarding of the funding, because they will probably award the funding in stages. And so the more ready we are and apply right at the get-go, the greater likelihood we are to get funded first and start moving first. So.
So Brian's got a question. How many people will be needed to put together the updated CWPP? What's our estimation on what we think for votes?
Well, it's not a matter of number of people. It's really the representation, and that those stakeholders are present and represented. So we'll have a core team that is those primary decision makers and stakeholders, and they'll drive the project with the consultants from day one all the way to the end. And then along the way, there will be more voices brought in, because obviously we want input from all of the communities that are in the county and that are going to be affected by this. And so, you know, it's not a, well, we need exactly 20 people, or it will probably be 50. It's really that we want to make sure all the stakeholders at one point are represented and their voices are heard and reflected in the CWPP. Emily and Vicky, does that sound right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think, you know, often we'll have some more ancillary stakeholders that will engage at different parts of the process, like you mentioned. You know, like, for example, utility companies, sometimes we set up separate meetings with utility companies to talk about their specific needs and concerns. But typically the core group is comprised of local, state, and federal government agencies, and nonprofits and other conservation groups. And I'd say, you know, just to kind of throw out a number, I guess it's typically around 15 to 20 people throughout.
We've got another question from George. Are the county commissioners going to buy in?
Do I get a crystal ball?
I mean, that is our goal of engaging the county commissioners and all the signatories and all the stakeholders, you know, early and often, right? Like, we want to learn what their concerns were with the last plan, the 2009 plan. We want to learn that from the start so we can make sure we address it this time around. So I think just making sure that they're empowered in the discussion and they feel like they're being listened to early is going to be really important. I've worked on several plans where we have a county commissioner or several county commissioners attend every core team meeting, and they've been heavily engaged, and then it just really smooths the final approval process at the end because they've been part of that development. So I think that's the thing, is just no surprises at the end, right? Make sure that they know what's going on right from the start.
And I think it's really critical that they be involved in throughout the whole process. You know, with the understanding that not everybody in our community is going to share their views, but a majority of our community shares their views because we're all the ones that put them in office. And so, you know, we have to go into it with the thought that our commissioners, you know, were put there to represent our community, and that their input and their desires are important in the creation of this plan.
Yeah, and one of the objectives of our core team as we start this process will be talking with the commissioners, making sure that we're all on the same page, making sure that they really are the first step. And when we established or when we presented to the commissioners that we would be creating the council and asked for their support, we definitely added in that updating the CWPP would be a primary goal and one of the focuses. So they knew it was there, but we want to be sure to establish at the very beginning, which is right now, that this is what we would like to do. And so establishing our core team is the beginning of that. We need to make sure that we've got a team ready to go and ready to take this on. And then our next step is really presenting it to the county commissioners and asking for their support in this process, because I think we do want them at every core team meeting and to be a part of this, because we do not want to get through 18 months of an update and then have them not sign it or be unhappy and not have it come to fruition. So we definitely, that's one of our first steps.
Thank you, Kristen. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I have one for Kristen. Kristen, you mentioned that the DNRC funding comes in stages. Is that performance-based or date-related?
No, and it isn't finalized, but that is how it is sounding. It's going to be that it will be stages, and it's not going to be performance based necessarily. It will be kind of that readiness to go. And so especially if they do go with choosing one contractor to do all of the counties, which, you know, the reasons behind that would be you are ensuring that you're getting a quality product that is addressing all different levels, and making sure that that product is a really well done CWPP. And so if you have one contractor doing all these counties, they can't do all of them well at once. And so that stage approach will help them to better do it if that is a stipulation of the DNRC. And then it will be awarded based on who is the most ready according to their application for that funding, who has that core team already in place, who's got the commissioners already behind them and ready to commit to the process. So yeah, so that's the stages, but remember it hasn't totally been finalized. So that also could change, especially if they decide not to have one contractor do everything.
So Dar's got a question, is there a cap on funds requested for the grant?
There might be, because they only have a certain amount of funds available. Initially, they were kind of thinking of equal amounts for counties, and then as you look into it, every county is different, and a CWPP update for Yellowstone County is going to require a heck of a lot more time and effort than one for a much smaller, less populous county. And so they are right now trying to figure out how to divvy up, I guess, the funds. So, you know, we don't know exactly dollar figures on what those chunks will be broken up. There's about 250,000 that was in the grant that they have to award, I believe.
Right, yes, we will. Thank you so much, Emily and Vicki.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
And Bridget, I'll send you the written summary, and can you share it with the rest of the group, please?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. So with all of that, we got to start forming a group and hopefully maybe get some meetings going in the near future. So keep that in mind, but we'll move on to the funding that is coming up. So I believe it was August 30th, they released this funding. Coalitions and Collaboratives, Inc. is a really great organization, nonprofit based out of Colorado. And they have what's called their Action, Implementation, and Mitigation Grant Program. So a little overview of the grant. It is reimbursement funding. It's available for a wide variety of capacity building activities, including personnel, and planning efforts and wildfire risk reductions on non-federal lands. When we first started this council, we really wanted it to serve as something that was locally based, sustainable, and collaborative. There's many other wildfire councils that exist out there throughout the West that have been really, really successful over the years. A key piece of their success is having a coordinator or director that was dedicated solely to the council and addressing wildfire risk. When we first started this, we had applied to the Montana Forest Action Plan to try and get funding for a coordinator and director. That didn't happen, unfortunately, but we still feel as though that's really truly a first start to keeping this group going. Again, my position is grant-based as well. It is 3 years seasonal full-time. So really technically only 3 months of the year I'm here. So there's a need to build capacity in the Valley. Got a really great thing started, so just want to keep it going, hopefully. So with this grant, again, it is reimbursement. But it is directly for those capacity building activities, including personnel such as a coordinator. Matching contributions, we must have a 100% non-federal match. Cash or in kind is eligible, but it has to be a 1-to-1 grant to match ratio. Awarded funding is usually between $10,000 and $75,000. They're contracted for 1 year, and it's provided on a reimbursement basis. So again, they want applicants to demonstrate how their proposal fits into the bigger community wildfire picture, including coordination with federal partners on nearby public lands, which we got that going for us already. Who is eligible? So the organization must be nonprofit 501c3. We don't have that yet, but we work closely with the Bitterroot RC&D. So we have talked to them about potentially having a fiscal sponsor. Fire departments could also be a fiscal sponsor as well. So little piece of the puzzle that needs to be figured out, but there's possibilities there. Again, who is eligible? Communities at high risk to wildfire proximity. I went through, we check a lot of them, but again, coming down to that, providing the match is really going to be the kicker here, I think. So well, let's see. Again, the proposals, personnel capacity. So really with applying to if we decide to apply to this grant, we want to hire a coordinator. Again, just somebody full-time to be able to be here coordinating all these efforts.
Question is, how are you going to pay for it up front?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. We're going to figure that out here. It is federally funded. Yeah, so those are federal funds, which is why we can't use the federal match. Yep, yep. You can. Yeah, so again, those critical components, they want to see the local investment. So they don't want to see the funds coming from just one big state grant, unfortunately. So they need to see that evidence of local contribution, community contribution, so that they can see there's buy-in. Exactly. Yep. That's the only thing that's going to make it successful in the end. There's a ton of different issues out there that all want money and funding. So if we can't create those resources from the community base, it's just going to never end. So, and then their goal is to offer both financial help and mentorship as well. So they're really looking for programs that are kind of at that tipping point where if we get this funding, we're going to be able to take off, do a lot of things, get a lot of work done. versus somewhere that's kind of not quite there or ready yet. So I'm feeling like we're kind of at that point. We really, having someone here full-time dedicated to the council is really going to make all the difference, especially continuing it. And the CWPP update process, that is exactly what that coordinator or director would be helping through with the process. So they'd be someone there start to finish and then helping to coordinate that as well amongst all the other partners and whatnot. So it is a two-step application process. The first step is a concept paper. The team reviews it and they rank them and then invite people to actually apply to the grant. With this, we do have our application still from the Montana Forest Action Plan. So our hopes is to just try and utilize what we kind of created already and apply it to this grant. So yeah, you can do that. So the concept paper is due September 30th. Yeah, so it's coming up really fast and we got a lot of work to do. So it all comes down to whether we're ready or not. Obviously, if we can't source the funds locally, we're not gonna really, might not put in for it. We won't be considered for it. So I wanted to throw this out there. There's resources available. There's money available out there if and when we're ready. So you can look to them.
How much is this grant for? What's the ceiling on this?
75.
Can I just ask, what's the brief for being
That's what we're here for. Yeah, so this is, locally based, locally driven. So
just wondering if any input had come in?
not yet. Yeah, not yet as of today. So I am open to all and any suggestions. I'm happy to reach out to people, talk to people, whoever I got to. So yeah.
Well, are accumulated volunteer hours at a certain rate per hour, does that qualify for
That does qualify. Yes, yes. And I believe it's if we don't have an established amount, it is about $28 an hour for volunteers. So that is a possibility.
And has there already been work done that would qualify?
Not enough. Not enough. Unless I don't know if we could tap into Byron's, like the Bitterroot RCD with all their 50/50 cost share programs, if we can use that as a way to show that community buy-in. Which unfortunately Byron is not here tonight. But this is where this is a working group. We got to come together and really work through these things because the answers are here. We just gotta uncover them. Questions, concerns, thoughts, any ideas?
Well, one thing is it occurs to me particularly for these sorts of grants that require a match and where to come up with the match is with Fire in the Root. I know that the Hamilton Fire Department and other local fire departments do a lot of kind of different sort of community outreach events and the like. And so anything that they are doing that is compatible with the mission of, say, Fire in the Root, because they're well established, volunteer group, it'd be pretty easy to capture capture their time as cost share. And so other kinds of cost share that you can get on this is, you know, if you get the county commissioners to sit down and, you know, spend 2 hours with the group, that's cost share. Somebody else is paying their salary. They're there to help and provide input. And so I think there's lots of ways that you can come up with cost share. The trick is to convince the reviewers that it's legitimate. You know, it's you know, that's the hard part. But you know, if you can say that, you know, we have, you know, 3 volunteer fire departments are committed to providing, you know, 20 hours a week for whatever, then, you know, that can add up. So.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I didn't even think of that. What do you think about that, Berlin? Is that?
Bro, we utilize volunteer hours all the time, but when you read that grant, if you go to the web and read that grant, you have to have actual fiscal cash also, besides the volunteer hours. And that's gonna be the problem of this group coming up with fiscal cash. So.
And that's cash, not pledge.
That's cash, not pledge. You have to have cash. You have to actually expend the cash first.
Yeah.
Turn the bills in, and they will decide then to reimburse them or not reimburse them.
So, yeah, yep, in a short amount of time. But this, I do think it's a yearly grant. So, I mean, if we can, yeah. A little wishful thinking on my part.
Is there, this window, I mean, it seems really, you know, to work for this.
Yeah.
What does? Do you have dates of what the next window looks like?
Oh, for like I would assume it's same time frame for next year. Yeah. Yes. So something to keep an eye out. And I don't know, do we feel like this is something way over our heads we're not there yet, not ready for?
Seems like the fuse is awful short. And and the 501c3 is not a trivial thing. Local governments like the fire departments are not 501c3. I don't know about Bitterroot RCMP, they probably are.
Yeah.
But the local governments are not. And that, you know, that's something that has to be done. And coming up with the money up front in 10 days.
Yeah.
Kind of a short fuse.
That's fair. Yep.
Most of us in fire departments have associations under us that have the 501c3 status. And 501c3 status is not something that's really easy to get, you guys.
No.
In the state of Montana, it's a very expensive process to work through.
Yeah.
So that takes money also.
And time consuming.
And time consuming.
Yeah.
So
Hard
we
to
would look
maintain them.
And it's hard to maintain.
Fiscal sponsor underneath the Bitterroot RCMD, we would not
Yeah.
look at our 501c3 yet, we would just see a
They
fiscal
would
sponsor.
They would sponsor.
Yeah, they take care of that for a lot of local organizations and have, so.
What I had.
So finding a donor doesn't qualify. $10,000 donor, that wouldn't be available, nothing, couldn't be a matching fund because we're.
You bet it could. You could.
It could
Yeah.
be.
It could. If they gave us the cash, you bet. If they
Yeah.
used the cash to pay for somebody.
Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit early, you know, it's the hard part. The first problem that we're gonna have for a grant right now is it's gonna take probably a week to find somebody who will let us submit a grant through them for this informal organization right now. Because there's no way that this group can submit a proposal to anybody really. just not, kind of not ready, so.
Which we have spoken with Byron from the Bitterroot RC&D, and he is supportive of it. So there is an opportunity for fiscal sponsorship. It still does come down to actually acquiring the money to have the match.
Well, and having expended the money.
Yeah.
Right, so not only do you have to get the money, but you have to spend the money in the next couple of weeks.
We don't have to spend, I believe,
Prior to the concept paper, you're okay?
yes, and I don't think, what were they saying? Yeah, I don't think it does not have to be spent quite yet. It has to be spent within the year that the grant is actually starts. So you can't actually pay for things from beforehand.
Just within the period of the grant.
Of the grant, exactly. Yep. So there's time there, but yeah. I expected this. It's overwhelming. It's a lot.
So once the paper is submitted, what's the time frame for the actual application? Do we have more, what's the wiggle room?
Says they notify you the week of October 11th, and then it doesn't give a final application date on this one.
I believe the grant actually it starts like January 2022. So it would be before then. Yes.
So if you got money, the expenditure for that to start in January 2022.
Yes.
The funds have to be secured by the time the concept paper comes in.
That, I believe so. That was one thing I wanted to. Let's see.
So we change it a little bit if the funds are going to be secured by the time.
Application, right.
That extends that window.
So we do need to have funds that we can pay for the coordinator from to get reimbursed, and you need to have non-federal funds in kind match for the amount we're asking for.
And it does, on the concept paper, it does have a section for match and budget. But that is, I mean, if this is something that we think we could get the funds by, the time that the actual application is due, I think they'd be willing to work with us if we communicated that to them. So that is absolutely something we can reach out about. But yeah. A lot to think about. There's a few other grants out there. They are FEMA. So they're pretty big, pretty detailed. I sent those links in with my email invite. So those are a little later on, but again, not sure if we're quite there yet. So, but it's definitely something that we should keep discussing, keep researching. And so if anybody here is passionate about funding and would like to work with me and others, please let me know. And yeah, any other thoughts, concerns, questions about the AIM grant? Okay. Is anyone here interested in being specifically a part of the funding committee? Researching or online, yeah. We got Rick.
This is Dar. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we got you, Dar.
I have a question. We wrote a little grant for $2,000 under the hazardous fuels treatment program. And I think Byron said that we'd be notified about the funding late August, early September. Do you know anything about that grant?
We don't know. And do you met? No. Sorry, Dar.
So I need to talk to Byron then.
Yeah, he's your guy.
Okay, no, that's fine. That answers my question. Thank you.
Of course. All right. Well, hopefully one day we'll get a funding committee, start having meetings, and hopefully get a coordinator and keep moving forward.
Does that have to happen?
Bridget, Bridget, like you and I talked the other day, I'm happy to support your grant writing efforts, so you keep me on the list.
I will absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Does that funding group have to happen at a formal meeting?
Not necessarily. That's kind of up to everybody here. I don't know. What do you guys think?
So I say this is my first meeting.
Yeah.
But you've got the wheels turning, and so, you know, I would think about it. Yeah,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
still-
Awesome.
And talk to somebody about it, so.
Yeah, truly, I mean, I'm open. This is our group, you know, so we all make the decisions. I'm not the deciding party here. So however it works best for all of us to.
Is there a voting process now in place?
Not yet, no.
So could it be just a consensus if you put out an email and said there's certain people that have expressed interest, does anybody have any objections? Could that work that way?
Is anyone opposed to that?
Sounds good.
If you wanna help her find funding, go for it.
That's one of the projects that has the most successful coordinator is hired. Absolutely.
And consistency is key too.
Bridget,
Yes.
you have a ballpark for what it would take to start off with the coordinator? I mean, some sort of budget in mind, or is that the purpose of trying to have a funding committee? So if you're looking for the grant, if you came up with 15,000, then we'd get the match for another 15. What are your, and I suppose I don't want to step on the toes of the folks on the funding committee or whoever's going to be on that, but that's a thought.
Yes, so in our, in the original application that we had put in for the Montana Forest Action Plan, we were requesting, let's see. We had requested about 50,000 for salary, wages, benefits. That would be full-time, year-round position. Obviously, we are open to modifying it to whatever match we would be able to get. So it's not necessarily set in stone. We're willing to work with what we can get. Something's better than nothing. So that answer that question.
Yeah, no, it did. That's good.
So 50,000 would be great, but if we could get 10,000, that, you know, anything is something and gives us a little start. And then even if we could get something, then somebody in a position for, you know, a little short time, they could hopefully work on finding their own funding, or, you know, we keep working towards finding more funding to keep them on. So never ending scavenging for funds. Yeah.
Have you approached the fire districts? I mean, they're obviously taxpayer funded, but they also speak to a lot of people in the community. I wonder if they would be willing to say this is a good thing. We're asking for people to do it. I know Hamilton usually has its drive coming up, but that might be a problem for them. But that's time on the way that I've seen in my 40 years in the Bitterroot. It's just going out soliciting things like that. Whether it's the Cwpp Valley Veterans Service Center started off with just volunteers doing it until could pass the hat enough to get a part-time person who could help fill out the VA material.
Right.
The civic club route, I mean, there are all sorts of routes like that that started nonprofits with RC&D serving 501c3.
So suggestion, can you set up a core CWPP team to start working on that process? And we need to speak with commissioners and find out their level of support. Sure, where we're landing with the funding committee, we just want to keep it informal for now, and if you guys want to email and talk to members.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Just send a follow-up email about this and then try and figure out some funding, communication, and then CWPP.
Half hour, 45 minutes, talking about the grant that you can't write.
Yes, hopefully, and reach out to people I think that's word of mouth is going to be the best way, and connecting with friends, family, local organizations. I've done a big outreach push, but haven't really had the time to go one-on-one personally. We've got a Facebook, so we're posting on there a bunch. We haven't put it out for funding or anything like that. Yes. Yeah, we're on there, and sometimes the social media is hard just getting them to respond back. So, I think the more we can go out together and say,
Some material could be utilized by if people there can be.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do might steal a couple of your pamphlets and get you more later. I've got some Fire in the Root pamphlets here that if you want to. Yeah, we got online stuff too. We have our fireintheroot.org. So we're online. We're trying. Yeah, it's slow, but sure. Yeah.
So is anyone interested in being on the CWPP committee in the room or online?
I'll be on it.
Eric? Anyone else? Okay.
I'll go ahead and join up on that committee. Rick Donovan.
I think just being at those core meetings and providing input. Certain communities is one good one. Realtors, you have your own stake in the game. So just providing that feedback, and then details are, as they said, around 3 core meetings and then a bunch of other little meetings in between there. Yeah.
And as a group, we would probably need a few more extra meetings to really get our ducks in a row, because we're going to need to make sure that the commissioners are on board, make sure that we're on the same page with the commissioners. We've got to establish really good two-way communication there, and ideally get them to the table so that they are at all of our meetings. But then we'll need to hopefully apply for the DNRC funding for the CWPP. And then once we get that funding, then those 3 core meetings will probably happen with the contractor. But remember, we got to get to that place. So there are going to be meetings to get us to that point beforehand. So, and the state, we definitely will be represented in the process either by myself, Bridget will have a hand in it as well, but there will be the state at the table helping out definitely.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Okay. Well,
So from a Forest Service standpoint, for instance, is it an expectation that the forest supervisor will be part of this at the same level as the county commissioner?
It's a good question.
And you're gonna attend all the meetings and do all the stuff.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
There's the very bad of course will be there in one way, shape, or form, whether that's Matt Anderson or B or Mark.
Right.
We'll be part of this too.
Yeah.
This is,
But there's
I'm
some,
imagining. Matt
there's some
Anderson-
implied decision authority there. Or not implied.
I get it.
Actual.
I know how the work gets done. That wasn't my question. But, yeah,
so
and the same with the state, with the NRC.
Yeah, so DNRC will definitely be at the table, and it's in my position to help counties with any CWPP process. So we are going to be at the table. We are not going to drive the process, nor will the Bitterroot, because it should be the whole core team working together. And really, the local government should be the driver. So that I don't think right now the issue is going to be who with the state and who with the federal agencies are going to be at the table. It's really, can we get the local government and can we get our local groups at that table as part of that core team? Because without their buy-in, this is not going to go anywhere and it's not going to work. So that's where our council comes in, because we've got a lot of this representation. We've got some great diverse voices that need to be heard in this CWPP process. So that's, I guess, what we're asking. We need some of our VFDs voices to be represented. We need to make sure that we've got some of our local communities represented. We need to make sure that a commissioner or multiple commissioners are behind it and part of the process. We need to make sure that our NGOs that are really active in any sort of mitigation or wildfire concerns or natural resources concerns are involved, and concerned residents. You know, we need your voices. So that's who we need on the core team right now, and I guess who we need to make sure we have, so that we know we can move forward, because without it, we can't move forward.
In the answer to your question, the last one, all the chiefs of every fire department in Valley County signed it. The sheriff signed it, Bitterroot Forest Supervisor signed it, the manager of the Hamilton unit signed it for the DNRC, the Bitterroot RC and D Forester signed it, and the task force signed it, leader of the task force.
For the one that's in place now.
For the one that's in place now, and the OEM coordinator, for the one that's in place now. At that time,
2006.
that was the DES court, it says DES, so, yes. And that was the 2006 version.
Any other questions, thoughts, or concerns right now? Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone coming out tonight, and feel free to reach out. I'll send up a follow-up email with the recording, kind of cover what we talked about a little bit, and hopefully start maybe talking about funding and talking about the CWPP update. Awesome. I'm sorry it went a little past 8. I appreciate y'all being here.
Is there a
Thank
current date